Hello everyone. Long time no see. So, let's talk about Doctor Who. Alright, okay, hold on. Hey! Let's make a couple of things very clear. First of all, just because something is a bargain bin review doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad. It just means that it's something that you would find in a bargain bin, something that you wouldn't maybe look at ordinarily. It might still be good. Second of all, I freaking love Doctor Who. And I'm not just talking about the new revamped series either. For 50 years now, Doctor Who has... Excuse me. What do you think you're doing? I'm doing what I always do. Breaking into the apartment and doing a biased commentary. Right. By always, you mean once? Anyway, that's not what I meant. You're talking about a television program. So? Clearly you haven't been around for a while because television is my shtick now. I'm reviewing a movie, which is based on a television program, and let's face it, Haberdasher, this movie is basically just an extended episode of the television show, and a week one at that. So if you don't mind, and really, honestly, even if you do mind, I'll be sitting in on this particular review. You're breaking into the apartment, so you really don't have a whole lot of rights in this area. Fine. Would you like to give a little bit of background about the show? Why, certainly. For 50 years now, Doctor Who has been a fascinating look at this time-traveling, body-shifting alien and his adventures in time and space. But as is the case with any sci-fi adventure show with multiple writers, the show can be pretty hit and miss, and Whovians never miss an opportunity to illustrate when the show has missed. Especially when Stephen Moffat is involved, it seems. On top of that, because the show has been around for so long, thanks to the Doctor's ability to change his body anytime the actor playing him wants to leave the show, I mean the Doctor dies, its very nature is amorphous, meaning that some people are going to be happy, and some people are always going to moan and groan about how the show was way better, such and such was running it, and blah-de-blah was the Doctor. However, on one thing it does seem that many, if not most, Whovians do agree. One of the biggest failures of the franchise was not in allowing Stephen Moffat to become showrunner, but in the 1996 television movie, cleverly titled Doctor Who, The Movie. Coming out 7 years after the original series was cancelled, following a 26-year run, it was the hope of the creators that the Doctor Who movie would act as a backdoor pilot to a new American-produced Doctor Who series, continuing the adventures of a new Doctor, making use of new special effects and technology of the time, and expanding the Who audience beyond the borders of the UK. In short, to do what they eventually ended up doing in 2005 with the new series. And as you sadly may have already guessed, the movie failed in its purpose, and to this day you have fans of the classic series and fans of the new series, but not a lot of fans of the movie. Is it really all that bad, or is it just an underrated gem? Well, as the Whovians say, allons-y! Really? Shut up, it's a crowd pleaser. Fantastic. So we start with an opening bit of rambling narration, attempting to explain just exactly what it is we're about to watch.
It was on the planet Skaro that my old enemy, the Master, was finally put on trial. They say he listened calmly as his list of evil crimes was read, and sentence passed. Then he made his last, and I thought somewhat curious request. He demanded that I, the Doctor, a rival Time Lord, should take his remains back to our home planet, Gallifrey.
And here we have our first major problem with the movie. It's trying to appeal to the fans of the old show while also expanding its audience. But the explanation of who the Doctor is and the Time Lords and the Master and all of it is so incredibly rushed that you don't really get a full idea of what it is you're going to be watching. Doctor Who is pretty complicated and confusing, and it's really hard to concisely explain in the course of one 2-minute movie introduction, which is why the 2005 revamped series didn't try, using the pilot episode to introduce the Doctor and the rest of the series attempting to explain him. But whatever, after our suitably epic intro, we see the Doctor carrying the remains of his nemesis, the Master, back to their home planet, Gallifrey.
I stowed his remains safely for the voyage back, because even in death I couldn't trust him.
Yes, I'm sure that there is no way that your biggest and cleverest rival, the Master, will ever be able to break out of that locked jewelry box. Well, to be fair, he is dead. What? Dead. In a Doctor Who story. You're killing me, guy. So the Doctor, portrayed here by Sylvester McCoy, the last television Doctor, seems to be living it up pretty well right now, sitting in his comfy chair, sipping tea, reading... Okay, nice touch movie. I'm sure nothing could possibly go wrong with this scenario. Subtle, 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 subtle. So, predictably, the Master escapes, and oh look, the TARDIS is going haywire. That so rarely happens. So the TARDIS is forced to make an emergency landing on, where else? Earth! Really? That's the transition you're going with? Interesting choice. So we find ourselves in San Francisco, 1999, and we follow what I assume is supposed to be a gang of young hooligans who appear to be fleeing from a scary man in a car. Yeah, you shot at him from behind a fence when he got out of his car, and he's the wimp. I can tell I'm really gonna like this character. But Captain Comeuppance is in town as another gang comes up on them, wielding... Okay, British writers, clearly you know nothing about America, because we don't have just random people walking around with automatic weapons. Never mind. So, after an actually pretty intense shooting scene, just as the annoying kid is about to die... Oh my god, it's British and old! Shoot it! Save the Union, boys! Do our nation proud! Seriously? Okay, yeah, I understand that they had to kill off the Doctor in some way, but this is what you came up with? Didn't he check before leaving the TARDIS? Or hear the gunshots? Well, he's not quite dead yet, but all the activity allows the Master to escape and disguise himself as Alex Mack to sneak away. An ambulance comes to take the Doctor to the ER with an orderly played by Eric Roberts. Meanwhile, the Master, who's an Animorph now apparently, stows away in the ambulance in snake form. As they prepare to operate on the Doctor's gunshot injury, the medical staff are befuddled by the fact that their patient seems to have 2 hearts.
2 hearts? What?
As if. It's a double exposure, Curtis.
Oh, good. It's one of those movies of the 90s, trying to appeal to the hip young crowd by having medical professionals say things like, as if. Also, if your x-ray is making it look like someone has 2 hearts, then maybe you should, I don't know, x-ray again? Get a new x-ray? Not blow this off as an insignificant problem? Do x-rays even get double exposure? This is a medical facility, not the back of a Walgreens. Anyway, apparently a simple gunshot wound is too complicated for this adept team, and they call on one of their top cardiologists. At the opera? What cardiologist goes to the opera when she's on call? Isn't that just asking for trouble? No, Haberdasher, this is to show that while she's a serious professional, she has a brain and a heart. They're setting up a companion. Oh. But apparently, her boyfriend Brian is none too happy with her medical emergency.
Listen, I'm on call. What do you expect me to do, ignore it? No. No, Brian, don't say that. Listen, just wait until I get home. Brian?
So, after that incredibly important plot point, it's time for the surgery.
Scalpel. Scalpel. And straight to track 4. Track 4 coming up.
Well, of course she listens to opera while operating because, sure, why not? Anyway, she tries to put a probe in him to see what's going on, but because his circulatory system is a wee bit different from normal, she gets lost and...
Massive seizure! Get that probe out of there!
Trying!
Base, he's flatlining!
The probe snapped! It's still in him!
Clear! 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 Give me 300! Clear! Clear! Clear!
The fuck did I just watch? Okay, I'm honestly not sure what just happened here. How exactly did he die? Are you honestly telling me that a probe in his body is what killed him? Really? Lamest death ever. Dr. 4, killed as he fell from a tower after fighting with the Master. Dr. 5, killed after being exposed to deadly poison with only enough antidote for his companion. Dr. 7, killed by an inept medical team after being non-fatally shot getting out of the TARDIS. So Dr. Grace, medical expert of the year, tries to get some answers out of the young hooligan who brought him in.
You don't know this man at all, do you?
Yeah, I do.
Then tell me his real name.
I gotta go.
Wait!
Stop, don't come back.
So the kid escapes with the doctor's belongings, and the doctor is taken to the morgue, which is being run by the two most obnoxious orderlies they could find.
Hey man, you doing anything special New Year's Eve?
Going to the costume party.
Oh yeah, me too. Who you going as?
Wild Bill Hickok.
Right, cool. Who's that? Oh, we've got a nice autopsy booked for you tomorrow morning, mister. Followed by a sauna or Swedish herbal wrap. What would be your pleasure?
Oh good, because what this movie needs right now is obnoxious comedy relief that provides neither comedy nor relief. Cut to the house of the orderly Bruce and his wife, where we find that the CGI Snake Master has stowed away with him. So because the movie feels it necessary to force a completely obvious and totally unnecessary parallel on us, this idiot who doesn't know who Wild Bill Hickok is watching the classic Frankenstein movie. On New Year's Eve? Because symbolism? And this, of course, is where the Doctor's regeneration cycle kicks in, which is where anyone not familiar with Doctor Who, i.e. the audience these people are trying to appeal to, will be completely confused. It's sort of explained later on, but in that same sort of rushed way, like the writers are afraid of having too much exposition. Basically, when the Doctor dies, his body regenerates into a new form. New face, new body, new personality, which was a neat little trick that the writers used early on so that they could easily replace actors who wanted to leave the show, thereby increasing the longevity of the show. Of course, normally it happens pretty much immediately after his death, but through the magic of plot convenience, it doesn't happen until he's already in the morgue. Actually, there is precedence for this scene. Dr. 3, for example, was already dead for a couple of minutes before his regeneration began, and both he and Dr. 4 needed a little bit of outside help to get their regeneration cycles going. In both cases, these deaths occurred outside of the TARDIS, and it is established early on that regeneration is a function of the TARDIS, and the TARDIS plays a key role, and we see hints of this even in the new series. And not only is Dr. 7 well removed from the TARDIS at the time of his death, but it's also implied that the anesthesia may have had an adverse effect on his physiology. What's up with him? Ever since Reg and Hatter came back, he hasn't had a whole lot to do, so he's kind of been reverting back to earlier incarnations of his personality. Captain Obvious, what are you doing here? I'm not Captain Obvious. I'm the Continuity Officer. The Continuity Officer. An important presence, I think you'll agree, for such a plot hole-laden franchise as Doctor Who. So you're here to explain the continuity. But you're so obviously Captain Obvious. No, I'm not. Your shirt says Captain Obvious. No, it doesn't. So yeah, Sylvester McCoy turns into Paul McGann. He's alive, look at us, we know a cultural reference that everyone knows which actually has very little to do with what's happening here. And naturally, being alive again, the Doctor wants out of his death freezer. Okay. Dude, someone in the freezer where you are keeping the dead people is pounding on the stainless steel door so hard that it is actually denting. The appropriate reaction is not mild bewilderment.
Oh my god! God, no!
Wow, I was totally convinced by that stellar bit of acting. So the Doctor, it seems, can't remember who he is as he wanders through a conveniently dilapidated section of the hospital. Okay, to the movie's credit, this is actually a nice idea, sort of illustrating the parallels between the Doctor's regeneration and the Master's new form, but maybe cutting back and forth rapidly between the two of them, not the best way to illustrate this. So the Doctor screams his existential crisis to the heavens, the Master drools a lot, and Dr. Gray sleeps in her office, because remember, she's one of those doctors. And then the Doctor decides he should probably find some clothes or something. This, of course, is the obligatory scene in Doctor Who stories where the newly regenerated Doctor has to figure out what his outfit is going to be. And I have to say that I do like the way that this scene is handled in the movie. In the show, this is always an opportunity to introduce us to the new Doctor a little, and give us a glimpse at just what kind of Doctor he's going to be. But they recognize the very different situation the Doctor is under. He doesn't have a TARDIS full of clothes like normal, but a locker room with costumes for a costume party, and has to take the outfit he likes best. They also cut this scene with the kid going through the Doctor's things, like the sonic screwdriver. This is really the first time I feel like we get to know the Doctor a little bit, and it's done without any dialogue and really very nicely executed. Also, throwing Tom Baker's scarf into the mix is a nice little touch that isn't overdone. This is followed, unfortunately, by our first look at the new Master, who isn't at all subtle.
Oh, well, what would you like me to call you then?
Master will do.
Well, come back to bed, Master.
Shame the Master isn't always easily recognizable by his bright green and red eyes. Meanwhile, the hospital administrator decides that, now that the body has apparently vanished, the best course of action is just to pretend the whole thing never happened.
What are you doing?
You could have done last night.
Am I having a bad dream here?
Is this common in hospitals? I mean, last I checked, people die from complications in surgery all the time. I mean, it sucks, but it happens. What's this guy's problem?
If you do this, I'll quit.
You don't mean that.
Well, apparently she does mean that, as the very next cut shows her heading to the elevator with her belongings, leaving us with a distinct impression that this particular hospital administrator really sucks at his job. But, coincidence of coincidences, she happens to get on the same elevator as the Doctor, who recognizes her. So the Doctor tries to convince Grace that she knows him, but she thinks he's a creeper because, well, he's kind of acting like a creeper.
Please go away.
Please. You're my only hope.
I'll call security.
Do you know who I am?
I don't care who you are. Leave me alone.
But lo and behold, the probe that broke off inside the Doctor is still there, proving that he is, in fact, the same man Grace operated on. Why the probe killed Sylvester McCoy and not this version of the Doctor, I don't know, but never mind. Well, as is established in other cases, the Doctor exhibits some superhuman abilities in the first few hours after a regeneration. Dr. 4 karate chopped a cement block in two, Dr. 10 regrew a hand, and this Doctor managed to just bust his way out of the steel door of his freezer chamber. So it seems probable that the probe that killed Dr. 7 would not cause quite as much damage to the newly regenerated Dr. 8. I said never mind. But meanwhile, the Master, who has apparently decided that it would not be at all advantageous to blend in and try to pass himself off as Bruce the Orderly for a while, arrives back at the hospital looking a bit like Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I had a bad night.
Oh, come on, man, are you even trying? So he learns that the Doctor died, but that the kid ran off with his belongings.
The Asian child.
The Asian child? Bruce, you're sick.
Really? You're going there? Okay, whatever. Grace and the Doctor arrive at her house to find that boyfriend Brian, who made one brief appearance and had no actual lines, has in the course of one night packed all his stuff, including a sofa, and left Grace for committing the heinous crime of answering an emergency call as a heart surgeon. Well, I for one am glad that we could have this pointless bit of exposition. It added so much to the character. But Dr. Grace carries on, forgetting about Problem Brian as quickly as the audience does, and tries to figure out what's going on.
Maybe you have selective amnesia brought on by shock.
Maybe. I can't remember.
Yeah, Sylvester McCoy already made that joke. The scene that follows, where the Doctor remembers more about himself, and Grace discovers that he does have two hearts and tries to understand who exactly she's dealing with, is actually pretty decently done as a real meeting between the Doctor and his companion, where the Doctor seems to know a great deal about the companion, but the companion is struggling to understand the Doctor. It's another classic moment that's been done in various television episodes, but once again provides a very rushed explanation of exactly what the Doctor is. The problem is that because the Doctor currently has amnesia, he can't really adequately explain himself, either to Grace or to the audience members who have never seen Doctor Who. We know that he travels through time, that he has 2 hearts, and that he has 13 lives, but we don't really know or really understand what any of that means. He's just kind of this weird alien that we haven't really gotten to know, and Paul McGann, to his credit, plays a good Doctor, but he's not really written well enough to distinguish him either as the Doctor or as the 8th Doctor specifically. So, cut back to the kid, who returns to the TARDIS to see if there's anything else he can steal, somehow figures out that this thing is a key, and we have the obligatory bigger on the inside reaction, which is actually pretty funny. But who else should be inside the TARDIS but the Master, which is odd, seeing as how he doesn't have a key, but no matter.
This place is freaky enough.
Chang Li, that's your name, isn't it?
Oh good, he finally has a name. So the Master tells Lee that the Doctor has, in fact, stolen everything from him, including his body, and that they have to get it back. Lee goes along with it because...
What's in it for me?
Well, honestly, because this guy is creepy as hell. Not really scary, mind you, just really, really super creepy. In fact, the only real explanation we get for the Doctor is from the Master, but because he's lying in order to get Lee's loyalty, we have no way of knowing what's true and what's not. So not only are we not getting a good explanation for who the Doctor is, but we're also being fed false information from the Master about who he is. And maybe that was ultimately the point, to let the audience figure things out and reveal the Doctor's nature slowly, but that's not really the best method of introducing your show to a new audience. I'd also like to point out that the story is just now finally getting interesting after 40 minutes of very confused and haphazard setup. Also, is there any particular reason why the TARDIS looks like the inside of a Gothic cathedral? Well, it was a rhetorical question, officer. Anyway, the Master introduces Lee to the very heart of the TARDIS's power, the Eye of Harmony, and he claims that opening it will help him find the Doctor.
Look into the beam of light. If the TARDIS really likes you, the eye will open.
Question. Why does the TARDIS like him in particular? 'Cause he's kind of a little shit. Meanwhile, the Doctor remembers who he is.
I am the Doctor!
And there's kissing. Which admittedly was kind of a big deal at this point, because the Doctor didn't really do romance with his companions yet, but there's not really any kind of reason for it. He just kind of decides to kiss her. I guess this is kind of a unique aspect of this particular incarnation of the Doctor, but it's not really explored that much. But back to the Master, who has made an earth-shattering discovery about the Doctor.
The Doctor is half human. No wonder.
Say what now? What? The Doctor's half human. What's the big deal? Well, let's just see what they do with this.
I saw him, the Master is here.
What are you talking about?
He is planning to take my body so that he will live and I will die. Oh, no!
Wow, the dialogue is bad in this movie, but hey, at least we're finally getting some decent exposition.
What's the Eye of Harmony?
Power source at the heart of the TARDIS.
The TARDIS? What's a TARDIS?
The TARDIS is my ship. It carries me through time and space. TARDIS, it stands for time and relative dimension in space.
And this Master, is he like the devil?
The Master is a rival Time Lord.
Time Lord,
Pure
oh my
evil.
God.
I was bringing home his remains from Skara, where his final incarnation had been exterminated by the Daleks, or so we thought.
You really are insane, aren't you?
But he wasn't dead. It's a trap. Don't you see? It's a trap. He wants me to look into the eye. If I look into the Eye of Harmony, my soul will be destroyed. He will take my body. If the Eye of Harmony isn't closed, this planet will be sucked through it. Grace, I need to fix the timing mechanism on the TARDIS and close the eye. I need an atomic clock. Grace, please help me find it.
Okay, so on the off chance that you didn't understand any of that, here's what I think is going on. The Master is the Doctor's rival, and he's planning to destroy the Doctor by having him look directly into the power source of his ship, the TARDIS, which is called the Eye of Harmony. Now, because the Eye of Harmony is open, it will eventually suck the planet into it, unless the Doctor can close it before midnight, which he can only do with the help of an atomic clock. Already, the molecular structure of the planet is breaking down, and so time is of the essence. Did you get all that? I sure hope so, because I don't want to explain it again. Close enough. Dr. Grace, though, now thinks that the doctor is insane, not entirely without reason, and decides to call an ambulance to have him taken back to the hospital. Meanwhile, the doctor manages to find an atomic clock located conveniently in San Francisco. But the Master decides to provide the ambulance for the doctor, proving to be a not at all suspicious-looking orderly, and we have our first showdown between our two rival Time Lords.
We need to go straight to the Institute of Technological Advancement and Research. You know what that is?
Okay, that was actually pretty funny. But the doctor is caught in a traffic jam, the Master is revealed as the Master, and spits acid all over. Okay, seriously, this guy can come back from the dead after having been disintegrated. This guy has creepy green eyes that can hypnotize people into doing what he wants, and he has the ability to spit acid. Is this normal behavior for the Master? Well, no, but remember that the Master is possessing a human at this point, which he's technically never done before, so really anything goes. Hey, it's Doctor Who. Take plot hole explanations where you can get them. So the Doctor and his companion do what they do best.
Rob. Just keep back! Right there, sir! Ma'am?
They get by the cop by offering him a jelly baby. Nice touch. And take off on his motorcycle with the Master and Lee.
This is an ambulance!
Right. After a moment of clarity in hot pursuit. And we get a fairly intense, though admittedly standard chase scene. But you know what this scene really needs? More uninspired dialogue.
You kill me.
You want me to kill you?
No, I mean, you make me laugh, man. You're a funny guy.
I'm glad one of us is amused.
Finally, they arrive at the Institute, only to find that the Master and Lee have already beaten them there. There's a bit more rushed explanation as to who the Doctor and the Master are, which I'd like to point out is coming nearly an hour into the movie.
See, Grace says that you have a big secret.
What is it?
I'm half human. On my mother's side.
Okay, I seriously hope that this is building up to something good. I still don't get it. Why is Because this is the first time that we really get any information about the Doctor's lineage other than the fact that he's a Time Lord. And the idea that he's half human has all sorts of interesting implications about his attachment to the planet Earth and his history with the Time Lords and his affinity for humans in general, all of which can be really, really interesting if explored properly. But as anyone who's been watching the new series know, they never reference this particular plot point again. And there's even only a few mentions of it in the 8th Doctor adventures, and even then, writers disagree as to what exactly this means. So, I really hope that they're doing this for a really good reason. Well, in this case, it serves as yet another distraction so that the Doctor can steal something. In this case, what I assume is the key to the clock so that he can get the battery he needs.
See, I told you it was small.
What is it they say?
Yeah, they say that on my planet too.
But the Master is there and spots them.
Why'd you do that?
Liven things up, come on!
To be fair, this is something that the Doctor would do. Actually, in general, the movie does capture the Doctor's clever reactions to sticky situations very well. The Doctor always uses his own wits and whatever he happens to have lying around to escape from his enemies. Of course, it doesn't hurt that most of the enemies in this particular movie are kind of stupid as a rule. So after some very basic, do you know my future? Yes, tell me, no conversation, they arrive back at the TARDIS and this happens. Okay, that was pretty funny. But just as it's looking as though these two are going to save the day... So what, did he possess her through his acidic saliva?
What's he been telling you? When he gets his body back from you, I'm gonna be rich. You believe it? Why shouldn't I?
Yeah, why shouldn't I believe the creepy-looking dude in the black and the sunglasses and the creepy Eric Roberts voice? Come on, dude, seriously. Oh, yeah, that's definitely a dude you can trust.
I always dress for the occasion.
When taking over the world, it's important for me to look fabulous. So the Doctor is trussed up, so he has to look into the Eye of Harmony, and the Master can take over his body and gain his regenerations.
No one has managed to open the eye. How did you do it?
Simple. Lee is human, and you are only half. Lee, open the eye for me, please.
Wait a minute. So the whole reason why you had the Doctor be half human was to illustrate why he couldn't open the eye. So basically you have to be fully human in order to open the eye. So if you had chosen not to introduce a completely superfluous and unnecessary continuity gap into the series and just had the Doctor be a full Time Lord, he still wouldn't have been able to open the eye! And this honestly wouldn't bother me this much if they actually did something with it. But they literally reference it 3 times and then never mention it again. Not just for the entirety of the movie, but the entirety of the television program. Anyway, we get an actually pretty good scene here as the Doctor and the Master both fight for Lee's loyalty. He eventually sides with the Doctor, and the Master... No! Kills him in cold blood. Whoa. Shit just got real. But Grace is human, and the Master forces her to open the eye, and the shit hits the fan. But he also removes the possession from her, so now it's up to Grace to save the day. And give Paul McGann and Daphne Ashbrook some credit here, they really do make it seem like the world is at stake here. I mean, their acting is really what makes this scene work. It certainly isn't this. Or this.
17, 16, 50!
And it most definitely is not this. Really broke the bank on those effects, didn't you guys? Well, somehow, please don't ask me how, the Master's plans are thwarted and Eric Roberts mad! Wow, both companions dead in the same movie. That'd be really impressive if there wasn't some plot contrivance to bring them back in about 5 minutes. So we have our final fight between the Doctor and the Master, and this is something else that could have been a lot better than it was. The Master is actually a really interesting character from the series because he represents the dark side of being a Time Lord, which also haunts the Doctor's own experiences. And though he is the Doctor's enemy, he's also a fellow Time Lord, and so the Doctor feels a certain amount of kinship with him. Yet rather than explore this character and this relationship more thoroughly, they just turn him into an evil Eric Roberts monster with maybe a little bit of phoned-in sentimentality at the very end. You had the elements to make a good story, guys. Why didn't you use them? Anyway, the Master is thrown into the Eye of Harmony, where he is completely destroyed and I'm sure won't ever be coming back to, say, run for Prime Minister or anything. There's still the whole Earth being destroyed and Grace and Lee being dead thing, but that's nothing a little Deus Ex Machina magic can't cure. So, the Eye of Harmony is what exactly? And how did they manage to reclose it again? Did they change history? If so, why do these two remember everything, and yet they're still alive? I mean, I know that Doctor Who plays it pretty fast and loose with time and continuity as it is, but this seems like it's really kind of pushing things. No, not even worth it. And because it was so brilliant the first time, we get to go on our New Year's acid trip again as time resets itself. The world is as it should be, and the Doctor prepares to say goodbye to his companions.
Next Christmas, take a vacation. Just don't be here.
Yeah, go to London or something. London's always safe at Christmas time, right? And we have our obligatory come with me scene where the Doctor offers his companion the opportunity to go gallivanting around the galaxy, but in a stunning turn of events, this companion is actually perfectly content to stay behind, which is honestly kind of refreshing. So they share their final kiss, and the 8th Doctor is off into the TARDIS for more adventures.
Oh no, not again!
So that's Doctor Who the movie, and to be perfectly honest, it's not a terrible movie. It had a lot of decent ideas, it paid homage to the classic Who series in a lot of ways. Paul McGann plays a convincing Doctor, Grace was a good companion once they ditched the boyfriend and the Puccini, And there are a lot of good scenes that set an atmosphere to convince you that something really is at stake here. For all that, though, the movie has some pretty major flaws. The dialogue and jokes are painful to listen to. The potential of having the master in the movie is ruined thanks to the Eric Roberts monster performance. And a lot of the scenes look as though they were directed by a film student trying really hard to impress somebody with his artsy cinematography and special effects savvy, and they just come off as goofy. On top of that, as far as expanding the Who audience, it's pretty easy to see why the movie failed. The appeal of Doctor Who is not in the weird plots, but in the character of the Doctor himself and what it's like to be this alien, living his 8th life and traveling through time and space. But the 8th Doctor is written so poorly and the explanation for the Doctor is so rushed that it's more confusing than fascinating, and the confusing nature of the plot doesn't help matters. I appreciate the little Doctor Who touches they did put in, and the quieter scenes that just allow you to take in the scope of what the Doctor is, but those moments are few and far between. There is a lot of wasted potential in this movie, especially when you consider that the big bad of the movie is one of the most fascinating characters of the series, the Master. I think a fan of the classic series might get some enjoyment out of it, but not a newcomer or a watcher of the new series. All in all, it's not that much worse than one of the weaker television episodes, but that's just it. If you're going to go to the trouble and expense to make a movie from a television franchise, you kind of want it to far surpass the scope and quality of the franchise, and this movie just doesn't. And that does it for another Bargain Bin review. Now, if you'll excuse me, you and I have unfinished business. We do? I believe you have something that belongs to me. What, him? What do you want with him? Every evildoer needs a lackey, wouldn't you agree, twin? Besides, with Reg and Hatter back now, you really don't need him anymore, do you? What do you say? Which one of us needs you more? Nothing like a little power of incredible apathy to keep you from needing much of anything. Go.